Good afternoon, YouTube. Matt M. Roy back once again, back to you with a 1 p.m. live stream. I don't know how many of you guys are going to make it here, but we'll wait a couple of minutes. I was just in the mood for a live stream. Something came to mind a few minutes ago when I was working on one of my computer monitors, and I wanted to go ahead and share some tips and tricks for refurbishing computer systems, things you can do that if you want to make the most money possible from those refurbished computer systems, this is the way to do it, folks. There is a right way and a wrong way in everything in life, and these are going to be some tips that will hopefully help you eke out just a little bit more profit from those refurbished computer systems that so many of us are trying to sell that frequent my channel. So I'll wait here a few minutes, see how many of you come, and yeah, then we'll go ahead and start. By the way, this time of year is brutal on your skin, absolutely brutal. And I have to say, again, not a product placement, but Cetaphil moisturizing lotion works really well. I keep it beside my computer all day long for my dry skin. And yes, I am of Scandinavian descent, so I do have many issues with dry skin. And I need to actually do this more because my hands are really cracking something pretty bad. You can see I got a crack there, got a scratch there from working on computers earlier. Incidentally, I did some rearranging with the microphone, and I can already tell the audio sounds a lot better than it did. I think I had it in stereo mode instead of cardioid mode, which is really what I needed to have the Yeti mic in. The cardioid mode is the mode that when you sit right in front of it, the majority of the audio that comes through is from the top of the mic. So if I have the mic angled down a little bit and I'm talking down to it, like you see I'm doing right here, that is exactly the way you want it. Oh boy. Man, the suspenders make me look heavy, don't they, folks? Oh, boy. Yeah, that's all my loose skin. You can see I got nothing over here, and the suspenders are really making everything look bad. So, yeah, I'm not going to show that anymore. Though every once in a while, I do like to switch it up a little bit. Belts kind of drive me crazy. Well, we got 5 people here. That's awesome. Harold K says good morning, or well, afternoon for you, I think. Yes, it is. It's 1 p.m. here on the East Coast of the United States. And we got 5 people here, so I think I'm going to get started. How many of y'all like the little intro or the little thumbnail I did? It's a secret to everybody. How many of you are old enough to remember The Legend of Zelda, the original Legend of Zelda, not Link and all the let's just call them not so fun revisions they made for the other systems? Honestly, the only one I ever really liked was the original Zelda for the NES. When they did the second one, Legend of Zelda 2, Link's Adventure, I think it was called, that was when I pretty much stopped playing. But what we're talking about here are tips and tricks, techniques, whatever you want to call them, for reselling refurbished computers. And the very first one, and the one that actually made me think about doing this video, is how to fix minor scratches on LCD screens. I'm going to pan you guys over here a little bit. You see that Dell monitor right there, that 4x3 one? Well, that monitor is actually a really decent monitor, but when I got it, it had some very fine scratches on the screen. One right in the middle, which is really the more annoying of the two, and the other one right on the bottom, which, to be perfectly honest with you, that one nobody would really notice. But the idea is, a lot of the times when you have scratches on LCD screens, they're not that deep. Usually it's from people laying it face down on a table and kind of moving it around a little bit. Like if you laid it face down on that table there, it'll get a fine little scratch on the screen. Well, there's an easy and very effective way to remove those scratches. LCD screens are built up by layers and layers and layers of basically plastic. That's above the actual LCD itself. The liquid crystal is underneath the actual liquid. And then above that is like upwards of 15 to 20 layers of this plastic. And that's what gives it that matte design. Now, I'm only talking here about matte screen monitors. Glossy screens like you find on laptops, those are totally different. We're talking about matte screens. So realistically, you can remove one or two of those upper layers and you'll still be okay. So what you want to do is, if you have a monitor like that you're trying to pair with a computer and it has some really fine scratches, you get yourself one of those Mr. Clean magic erasers. You guys know what I'm talking about. I've showed it many times on this channel. And for the really fine scratches, all you'll need is that and some Windex. And what you're going to do, you're going to spray the Windex on the, or say window cleaner, but most people use Windex. You're going to spray that on the monitor and let it sit for about a minute. Then you're going to go ahead and take your Mr. Clean Magic Eraser or equivalent brand, and you're going to go ahead and you're going to rub it in circles around the entire screen. If it needs it. If there's just like one or two areas where there's scratches, then just try to limit yourself to that area where the scratches are. And you're gonna have to put a little elbow muscle in this, but don't get too crazy. You know, get too crazy, you could crack the screen. So do that circular motion over the scratches or over the entire screen if you think it needs it, for about a minute or two. And then what you do is you let it sit there again for about another minute. Once it's done that, then you can take something like a paper towel or a microfiber cloth, would actually work better, and wipe it off. And you will be surprised to find that more times than not, those fine scratches will be gone. And basically all you did was take off a couple layers on top of the monitor. Now, there are a couple other things you can do as well. If you have deeper scratches, like scratches that maybe penetrated like 3 or 4 layers versus 1 or 2 layers, you can do the same thing, but instead of using Windex, you can use Goo Gone. And Goof Off, I think, works just as well, but I like Goo Gone. I've used Goo Gone for years. And you'll do the same process with that, and that's a little bit more abrasive. That's going to get in there, and it's going to, at the very least, if it doesn't totally remove the scratch, it will make it less noticeable. And that's what I did with that monitor. Now, that monitor actually had some very deep scratches that were very, very noticeable. I mean, as soon as you turn it on, you could actually see it in the screen. Now, since I did that, they're not totally gone, but they're much less noticeable. Like if you didn't know they were there, you would never find them. I mean, it was that much of a difference. So what I want to do here is, that was the first tip that I have for you guys. I want to go ahead, and we got 7 watchers here. Let me know what some of your tips and tricks are. I'll go ahead and read them off as they come into the live chat, but I'm going to go over a few more that I have that I've kind of prepared. I didn't really prepare well for this, but I did prepare somewhat. The next thing is cleanliness. And I've talked about this in the past, but when you get a computer in, let me give you a perfect example here. Okay. Got one of my Dell Optiplexes. This is a 790, so this is one of the older towers. Generally, when I get towers in, they're in a pallet. The older towers are going to be the more dirty ones for obvious reasons. They've been around longer, you know, they've just seen more use. So what you need to do is the very first thing you should do when, I'm going to put this down a little bit, when you get a computer tower in, you need to go ahead and clean it out, the inside out. The best way I found, the easiest way to do it, is if you have an air compressor at home, put on the spray nozzle, the one that sprays air, the one that's really confined, open it up and just go to town. Just spray everything. Now, you do want to be careful. You know, they do have fans in here that you can technically overspin and hurt the bearings, but that's very, very rare. Generally, you're going to be okay if you're careful, but that's the first thing you do. You want to go ahead and physically clean it out. Blow out all the grills, all the fans. Make sure you get into little nooks and crannies, like in between the case and the motherboard, especially by the PCI expansion slots or the PCI Express expansion slots. Also, do not forget to blow out any USB ports, headphone, microphone ports, and if it has memory card ports for like camera, like SD cards, those are susceptible to dust even more than these are. So you need to go ahead and blow those out too. Bearing in mind, those do have small pins, so you want to go ahead and be careful. Now coming to the back here, you also want to blow out any other ports, like this has the VGA, and yeah, this even has a legacy serial port on there too. HDMI display ports. So basically anything and everything you can think of, any ports that are on there, you want to go ahead and blow it out. So once you've done that, then you're going to go ahead and bring the computer in, and you're going to go ahead and physically clean the outside of the computer. Some people will go as far as to take some Windex and like wipe the inside of the case where the motherboard isn't, like, you know, the bare plastic on the bottom. I only recommend doing that if the computer itself is really, really dirty. You run the risk of damaging the motherboard if you get enough moisture in there. So I don't recommend doing that unless you absolutely have to. Now, one thing you got to remember with computers, once you blow them out, especially if you're using canned air or an air compressor, you need to let that tower sit for about a day, because there are little moisture droplets that are actually formed inside of those air compressor tanks. So chances are there's going to be a little bit of moisture that you're spraying onto that motherboard. Don't worry about it. Just don't use it for about a day. Let it sit for a day. You don't even have to have the side cover off, but after a day, that moisture will evaporate and it'll be safe to plug in and turn on. So once you bring it inside, the rest of it is basically kind of common sense things. You want to clean off any stickers, any residue that's left on there. Goo Gone is great for that. And the magic eraser. Those two things are your best friends when you're refurbishing computers. And believe it or not, the more attention to detail you pay to the computer case itself, the more money you're going to get in the long run. It's the same thing when you buy and sell cars. Think about it. You know, if you're selling a car, you're going to list that car for sale with junk all on the carpet, you know, the paint full of dirt and mud. No, you're going to clean the car out. It's the same principle with the computers here. Sam Hodgson says, cleaning internally is a must. I find that taking a picture of the inside cleaned will encourage customers to make a purchase. That is a great option, or that's a great comment, actually. And honestly, I don't really usually do that unless they request it. But I'm glad you mentioned that, because if people see the insides clean, then they know it is a properly refurbished computer. Going past there, that's about all you really need to do to physically clean the computer tower itself. And this goes the same for laptops. You can just apply what I've said to a laptop as well. Now we're going to talk about peripherals. Now, when I sell a computer refurbished, I usually sell it with a monitor, keyboard, mouse, speakers, and sometimes even a webcam. And yes, those things I do usually get secondhand, because I need to save some money. You got to remember, when I'm doing this, the idea is to make as much of a profit as possible while still giving your customer the best bang for their buck. So things like keyboards and mice, a must-have is things like Clorox wipes. I use those all the time. You can get them at Aldi. They're called Clorox wipes because they were the ones that invented them, but basically they're just wet wipes that have, it's not even really a chlorine bleach, it's like an alcohol solution on them, and you pull them out, and you're just going to wipe everything down. The mice, the keyboards. The keyboards are especially tricky sometimes because the ones you get in might have like ground in dirt. And if it's really, really bad like that, where a Clorox wipe and maybe a toothbrush, you can try to get in with the toothbrush and kind of coax the dirt out of there and then wipe it down at the end with a microfiber cloth. That's usually sufficient to clean most keyboards. However, if the keyboards you get in are really bad, there is a last ditch solution. And don't laugh. You've probably heard of it before. That is the dishwasher. That's right, folks. You can, and I would recommend it if you have a bunch of keyboards that are really dirty that you physically can't clean out, get them together, save them up. You have to, I like to zip tie the actual cables. Don't use rubber bands. They'll degrade and they'll fall apart in the dishwasher. But if you zip tie the actual cables, put the keyboards in, you want to put them in the slats like you would dishes. Usually I can get about 5 or 10 in our dishwasher. And use the dishwasher, the little finished jet dry tablets. I find they work just fine. And run it through. Absolutely. Just run it through a whole load. I would recommend using, don't use hot because you could melt the plastic. Go with a cold, or even better than that, if your dishwasher has a warm cycle option, go with that one. And just run it through. And you would be surprised at how clean some of these really nasty keyboards will get. Now, I will tell you, you have to let the keyboard sit for at least 2 weeks before you can use them, because they have to totally dry out. But in the long run, that saved me a lot of money, especially when I had problems sourcing my components. Victor Del Fuente, hey Matt, do you have I've been very stressed lately. Do you have anything that relieves your stress? Exercise. Exercise is the #1 stress reliever for most people. It releases endorphins in the brain, and those are those feel-good hormones. So believe it or not, your body conditions itself to do good. In other words, what's good for you physically is also good for you mentally. Think about it. Think about it. Okay. So we've talked about components. We've talked about, clean the physical towers. We even talked about cleaning the monitors. And that is basically it. I mean, other than putting in the right components, sourcing the right components, but that's not really what this is about. I wanted to basically let you guys know of some of the tips, tricks, techniques, whatever you want to call them, that I use to get the most out of my refurbished computers. Now, there are a few other things that you might want to have in your kit. And #1 in that kit should be a heat gun, or at the very least a blow dryer, because there are a lot of times you're going to be upgrading those product keys. And the only way to get them off really is to put heat to them and melt the glue. And then a lot of times you can get like one of those utility knives, and you can kind of peel the one end off and then just pull the old product key off. And then if there's any goo left from the old key, then that's when you want to go ahead and put the Goo Gone on there with the magic eraser, and that'll take it all off. But I've seen even worse than that. Like the computers that I got a couple of weeks back, they all had these stickers on it that told you what was in the computers. Well, the stickers they used were like permanent stickers. I couldn't hardly get them off. I actually had to peel it with my fingernail. I actually wound up breaking a few of my fingernails. That's why a lot of times I'll recommend a little razor blade or like a little utility knife to be able to pull that corner up. But if you have something like a heat gun, it doesn't have to be an expensive one. I have one like from Harbor Freight, and it'll heat it up to like, I think it's 500 degrees Fahrenheit. It's hot, so you got to be careful. But once you heat that glue up, it'll just peel right off. So that is something you definitely want to have. And believe me, used computers that you get in, they will have all kinds of weird stickers on them. The thing that drives me nuts, and I'm not going to try to make this into a rant, but is when people put Scotch tape on the computers. If you ever try to get Scotch tape off of a computer, it's darn near impossible. Really, you can't. The only way to do it, again, is to heat it up. And with Scotch tape, if you heat it up, certain cheaper ones, you can actually catch them on fire. So be very careful with that. The best way I found to get rid of Scotch tape is to basically soak it in Goo Gone for about an hour, come back with a magic eraser, and the Goo Gone will actually break down the chemicals in the tape itself, and then go over it with a magic eraser. Make sure you wet it first, and then usually it'll just break up into pieces. And then, of course, you got to bring it to the garbage and pour all the loose pieces in there. But That's about it. That's all I can say for some tips and tricks. Hopefully, going to help you guys and gals out there in the near future when you're refurbishing computers. What are we, about 20 minutes in? So I am out of tips and tricks. Got about 8 watchers here. This is your time to do it, folks. Let me know, what haven't I mentioned that you do? Let me know. Put it in the chat window. While I'm waiting, I'm going to see what's going on here. Just answering an email real quick. All right. I guess we don't have anybody that has any tips and tricks. I must have covered everything. Boy, I never usually do that. I usually leave something out. Are we sure there? Anybody have anything that they do when they're refurbishing? It doesn't necessarily have to be computers. It could be tablets. It could be televisions. Whatever you guys and gals have. This is mainly for you out there. I'm trying to help my YouTube audience out there. Let me know. Eric's Variety Channel, make it a one-stop deal by selling it with everything they need. That's a great point. And I try to do that as much as possible. But basically what he's saying is make sure they have everything. So they have all the peripherals they need, the webcam, the speakers, the keyboard, the mouse, the wireless card, Bluetooth adapters. I usually buy all that and include that with my computers. But even more than that, we're also talking software. So make sure you have the latest version of Windows 10 installed, activated, legit. If you can source Office for them, that's great. And the nice thing about that is they don't have to do anything. You're basically doing everything for them. And the cool part about that is when I sell a computer, I always make sure it has Windows 10 installed, Office 365 or 2016, depending on what I can source cheaply, which makes it even more lucrative for me, because when you buy a brand new computer from the store, they don't give you Office with that. They'll give you Windows, of course, but they don't give you Microsoft Office. So it behooves people. It's more beneficial for them to source a refurbished computer from somebody like me than to go and buy it brand new, say at Best Buy or Office Max. Erico, Sam is right about the pictures. Make sure you document any blemishes and be honest about it. Okay, that is a good point. It depends, though, and I'll be honest with you. I try to do as best as I can with the pictures, but when you do a large volume, like somebody like me, I deal in volume. It's very hard because when I list computers, I'm not necessarily listing specific systems. Like for all these Dell towers that I got in, I pretty much have one listing that shows them all, and I give them a range of prices, range of processors and everything. So it's very hard to do that in pictures. However, if somebody messages me about a specific computer, then I can take it out, take a closer look at it, and let them know about any blemishes or marks or anything like that. And Eric, that really does bring up a good point too. Your best friend, when you get computers in, one of your other best friends, I should say, ye old permanent marker, because sometimes you'll have like little scratches and little, like you was saying, like little imperfections in the case. Well, this will fix them. And believe it or not, it's very, very close to the black that you will find on the computers. And once I do it and let it dry, it's basically a permanent fix, and you really can't even tell that it's there. Some of you might be saying, yeah, Matt, but that's dishonest. You're just hiding these blemishes. Not really, because when you look at it, I've actually done this to my own personal computers, like my Dell XPS 8700, when I've scratched it up inadvertently. I've tried this on there before, and even a cheap one like this is a Jot brand. This is from Dollar Tree. These will last like 2 or 3 years before I have to do it again. So just another option for you to kind of eke out that little bit more profit. And in my opinion, it's not really dishonest, because think about it. I mean, that you're giving them a computer that looks and runs good. All right, everybody, I'm going to end it here. I do have to do some other things today. I just want to make this a quick live stream. Hope you guys and gals enjoyed it. Please continue to like and subscribe. And as always, have a blessed day, everybody.